Hi, Justin Shore again from Chronicles of EMS with a 60-second life-saving tip. The most common chirping in America is not from a bird, but from a dead 9-volt battery in your smoke detector. That sound coming from the upstairs closet or in the garage is not a faulty smoke detector, but a faulty battery. A dead battery. Is your family worth $1.59? Mine is. I change them twice a year when I go around the house changing the clocks. It's important to have working batteries in working smoke detectors. That's the only way you're going to know there's a fire in your home, especially if you're asleep. Go get a pack of batteries. Change them twice a year. It's important. Do it. It'll save your life. Until next time, this is Justin with another 60-second life-saving tip. Social media? I mean, what's next? Twitter? We're microblogging, I believe they're calling it now. 140 characters at a time. I don't even update the family blog anymore because my grandparents are on Facebook and that's how they prefer to get their updates. My grandmother just called earlier today, said she watched the show live online with some friends. I didn't know she could find us, and yet she was there watching the live show. And like you said, there really is no generational breakdown. It's not like 18 to 25 is on social media, right. Yeah. 26 to 30 is, there's it cuts across all barriers.
Well, what I find cool is, I don't know what format you guys use, well, maybe different mobile than you do on your computer, but I use TweetDeck, can I say that? Yeah, but the cool thing is, I have all my different accounts set up. I have LinkedIn, I have MySpace, which I don't even use anymore, but I have 800 people, most of which are EMS, on my Facebook account that I keep finding and they keep finding me. So if something good comes up about Chronicles or whatever, and I want people to know that, I can hit, and I have 3 Twitter accounts, 2 of which are business, but I can hit all of those and reach 1,500 people in one mouse click that I want them to know that this event's going on. That feels pretty powerful, but I feel good because I'm giving them something that I think they want and they need and they would appreciate. And I start getting that feedback. That's pretty cool.
And it's so much different than how we shared ideas in the past in this profession, in this industry. Conferences are never going to go away. There's always going to be a big industry conference. The manufacturers are going to come in. You can't always buy things online. You really need to test the equipment.
It's networking too.
But if you had 4,000 people at a conference, and by chance 2,000 people walked past your booth, and by chance 400 people stopped to talk to you, and of those 400, 100 bought a product. Imagine if you could do that same thing to tens of thousands of people, and really branch that out using the social media to get them familiar with what you're doing, and bring in even more and more people. And I think larger companies in the United States are starting to recognize how many people aren't watching television. I mean, I fast forward through commercials.
Okay.
TiVo.
Sometimes I stop and watch the ones I like. But
I work 100 hours a week. I'm a medic. I don't have time to watch TV.
Yeah, but companies are starting to realize that we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. I've got my third-party telephone out, and I'm searching through different things, and I'm looking at blogs, I'm looking at games, I'm looking at different things. I'm not staring at the television, and they're finally starting to see a shift in the way that advertisers are spending their money. Just like Pepsi pulled their ads from the Super Bowl and used that money to expand into social media.
I'm British.
Fantastic.
I've never even heard of that until what happened until I came here, and it's a huge thing. That's all anyone's ever talked about, and that's some of the big hitters who were there last night. That made them the act that Pepsi did pulling out of the Super Bowl advertising have made all them sit up and go, wow, this is a real opportunity.
But that's viral marketing. If any of you tweet something, I'm interested in it because you all have credibility and integrity to me. I'm going to check it out. If I like it,
I appreciate that.
Even you.
Even what my wife tweets?
Well, we won't go there. She's just entertainment.
She's great.
I love her.
Great.
Yes, we love you, Sandra. But the point is, I will check it out because it came from one of you. And if I like it, I'm going to send it to my 1,500 other people, and then she's going to send it to, and then Greg. I mean, Greg's got a huge fan base.
Yeah.
This man has the ability to tweet the world. I mean, through his different educational podcasts and so forth. And we can get a lot of good information out to a lot of good people. And that's just amazing to me. I mean, when I grew up in EMS, none of that existed.
I mean, something you tweeted a while ago about the Twitter analyzer. You put up about how I went, as soon as I thought you'd reach something like 60,000 people or something, I went, oh, I'm going to have a look at that Twitter analyzer and put in my username, and you realise that I might have only sent out 10, 20 tweets that day, but actually after they've been retweeted and sent on, it's like
exactly.
60, 70, 80,000 people that's seen that. Even though I've only got 400, 500 followers, but they're going retweet, and then it's going to their 500, 600 followers.
Exactly.
And that.
Wish there was some way of following that. It's just amazing.
But it also
They'll
reminds
figure it
you,
out. It's out there.
But it also reminds you that there's that many people can see you write inappropriate things as well.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And Fossil Medic on the chat right now just put an interesting 3 words: credibility, integrity, and interest. That's exactly right. That's if you want to have a social media presence and you want to actually get people to pay attention to what you're saying, you've got to have the credibility, integrity, and interest. And that's why the naysayers are going to drop down. Nobody wants to hear that. Eventually, people will listen to the first little bit. They don't want to hear people lying.
We don't have Keith here today, unfortunately. But if he was here, we're
remember
all
Keith
very
fondly.
positive, right? We're all very positive. What's negative about it? Even though we might not feel it, what would the devil's advocate say about social media?
Well, there's this thing in the United States that everybody perceives as hanging over their head like a 1,000-pound boulder. And it rhymes with hippo, but it's much more painful. And I'm sure we all know about the healthcare, whatever it's called. That would be one of the negative things, because we are all terrified of this legislation that we don't fully understand. It's like a meteorite coming in from outer space that's going to knock out the planet. We don't know when it's going to come, how it's going to come, but we're all terrified of it. I bought meteorite insurance for that matter, but real good sales guy too. But that's definitely one of the things, because if you say something, we're all terrified that it's going to get back, it's going to be traceable.
Liability.
But Justin has made the point. My dispatches go over a VHF radio system. And if we don't know where 123 Anytown Street is, they say it's the Frumpy Dumple residence. And so...
And it's your duty to respond.
It's my duty to respond. So, you know, they'll exactly know, and they'll say it's a 30-year-old female having a something.
Over the public airwaves, which is listened to if you have your
Everybody
radio
with
on
a
your hip
scanner.
and you're in line at the Jack in the Box getting some breakfast because you didn't drink coffee because you don't drink coffee.
Or have tea.
Everybody in that room hears that dispatch, and now that person's privacy has been violated. So to get around that, the law exempts radio dispatch from maintaining patient privacy. So if I hear on the radio that 123 Main Street, the Frumpy Dumple residence, has a 30-year-old female with chest pain, and I go to Twitter and say I'm going to 123 Main Street, Frumpy Dumple residence, fired,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
duty to act.
That's...
I'm pointing at my hip for you in the chat room on the
What's
Yeah.
duty
sitting
that?
at the edge of the table.
Duty that?
Duty.
Oh, duty to act.
It's
All
duty
right.
to
Duty
act.
to act.
But it's very interesting that a law originally designed to keep billers from selling information has been morphed into something that prevents paramedics from sharing information to save lives.
But there does need to be a protection there.
There does need to be a protection, which is the first clause in that legislation that we're talking about. HIPAA talks about no discernible information. You will not share name, age, social security number, date of birth, and specific events. Those things you will not share them. And then it goes on into very confusing legalese about creating a gray area where can a patient be differentiated from others based on what you've said. And if I stand here and say, I had a female patient the other day with chest pain, well, yeah, I violated the law. Because go back in my call history, look through my logs, find that female with chest pain, and now you can pick her out of a crowd.
Which is why you need to. I mean, my blogs. I've had certain people who have read it and have questioned it when I've gone on about it's all anonymous and when my patients aren't identified. Yeah, but you spoke about Mr. So-and-so, the 70-odd-year-old who was there the other week. And I said, well, go and read the disclaimer on my blog again, that what you're reading is a fictional account of real events. I'm not going to tell you which bits I've changed, because I have a system where I change certain bits one day and then certain bits the next, then the whole thing, and you will never be able to tell what happened with that patient. And I've got so many stories I would love to share, but they, just by even saying what they were, anyone could figure out what it was, because it was a newsworthy story or whatever. Which again, it's in the public domain because it's being spoken about in the news.
Yeah.
But my professional responsibility and my ethics, I'm not happy to share that.
Well, I use those stories for educational purposes. I like to teach a concept, chest pain, whatever it is, and then show examples of the different types of things. Or I use a lot of cases from my own history as a paramedic in the field. Of course, those are ancient at this point, but...
Which makes it a lot more unidentifiable, because you can have something which happened 15, 20 years ago, which you said, I had this job last week.
But for educational,
I'm never going to find
Well,
for
that's what I'm saying.
educational
What's the
purposes, you're also exempted from HIPAA. So
as long as there's nothing identifiable.
Is what I'm doing educating on the Happy Medic? Am I educating?
I think so.
You've educated me.
It's a gray area. Some will say yes, some will
That's a
say
good
no. So
point.
where do I fall? Where does my paramedic supervisor fall when he pulls me aside and says, "Hey, listen, we had a patient yesterday that presented the same way, and you
Is that
remember him? He's
coincidence?
over on 123 Street and all these things." Is he educating? Is he advising? Where do we fall in all this? If I'm keeping the specifics, if I'm protecting the patient's privacy to the spirit of the law, I'm not letting you know who it was or exactly what happened or when it happened.
Right.
Is that what we should be doing, or should we be following the letter of the law and never talking about patient contacts whatsoever?
No.
In our morning staff meetings in our ambulance, we will talk about challenging cases. And we won't say the name of the person. But if we've all been involved in the care, there's a gray area there where if you've been involved in this patient's care, you're able to know their information. But in the next morning meeting, we say this patient on Frumpy Double Avenue had a presentation of this. And perchance, we're a small community, we know, and it doesn't leave our morning meeting, but it's educational. We'll say, hey, watch out for this because you may be starting to see this on the street. We had patients that presented with X condition, and they were really frumpy doubled up.
And so, but you could find that by not doing that, then you could be, I would imagine there's some other element of your contract or whatever that would say get you into trouble for not sharing relevant, important information,
Yeah.
which could benefit that patient care in an episode in the future.
HIPAA's become so scary that it's very educational, I believe, for paramedics and EMTs to follow up with their patients and see what their actual diagnosis was from the
hugely.
hospital.
And that's what I do for a living. I do QI. I'm always trying to get follow-up from my firefighters that I work with on interesting cases or cardiac arrests or kids.
That has stopped in my area.
No,
We
I
don't
can
get
still
that.
get that, but it's different in every area. It depends on the hospitals you work with and their, because you have that thing called operational need, which is supposed to be over and above, the HIPAA, like you were saying, for educational purposes. But we're supposed to be able to give feedback to the field as an educational process. Now, in the area I work in, that hasn't been too big of a problem. We have hospitals that are fairly cooperative, but I know it's different everywhere.
It's really hard to get information back on a patient's condition unless you can walk into the emergency room and speak to that crew that took care of that patient.
Yes.
You never hear about him again, ever. You just don't.
And that's supposed to be good.
Yeah, and that's supposed to be protection.
That's protecting them, us not being able to learn how to help
No.
them the next time. So we've found this creative way of skirting the legislation in a way that's beneficial for our profession and our future patients, while respecting the rights and privacy of our current patients and our past patients. Not everyone's doing it properly.
But I don't think there's anybody in this room that wouldn't say that they would fight hard and fiercely protect real patient confidentiality.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
mean, we all would.
Yeah. But that's because we're proactive members of this new online social community. That even when I started blogging almost a year and a half ago, it's a completely different landscape than it is now. Completely different.
You're talking about a 67-year-old chest pain. You probably all had one of those in the last week. I mean, it's a very generic type of case. How can they say, well, it was this, First of all, who has access to your records if they're going to know what patient you're talking about, or know that Mark actually changed the age or changed something about the story?
I've changed everything.
Yeah, that's wise, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, the word that just came up in the chat room, in the computer that's got a seat at the table here, is sanitized.
Yeah,
Our
yeah.
posts need to be sanitized. I like that. I'm going to borrow that. That was PG Silva that brought that up for us.
Nice one. Yeah.
That's a perfect word to describe it. We need to take our situation, we need to sanitize it for unfamiliar eyes, for the bloggers. On Gen Med Show, you guys talk about a lot of stuff, and it's audio. You really have to think ahead on what you're going to be talking about.
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
edit, or edit well.
Or edit well. Hey,
Yeah.
we do both. We think ahead and we edit well.
We haven't talked about the Gen Med show.
Oh,
The Gen Med Show?
Gen Med Show is there.
GenMedShow.com.
Actually, we've just talked about blogging. There's a whole other side of social media and the podcasting as well.
Well, yeah, we've got bloggers sitting around the table, a podcaster.
A new podcaster.
What is a podcast?
Internationally known podcaster.
Is it a
I'm
radio
working on
show?
it.
And
Internet radio.
it's internet radio. It's like to me it's almost like an audio blog but it's shared between a whole bunch of people. We have 4 hosts. That's it's so great. It's 4 of us young kids and we're all in the medical field. And we're sitting down with our ideas and it happened because of social media. We're sitting on Skype. One night we just so happened to meet on Twitter and we Skyped and we were talking and I was like, man, we have a lot to say about the healthcare industry from our perspective, and we're like, let's do this. And it's like a blog, but more than one person's in it. It's a community of people putting our ideas together for other people to comment on. It's something.
And there can never be too much of that. So I remember you and Chris Montero when you were on EMS Garage. You were joking
I'm
amongst
sorry,
yourselves.
EMS
It's garage, not garage.
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 Gary.
In English, it's
Garage.
But you were talking and you went on after you published your first podcast, and there was a bit of back and forth about you're trying to take over or whatever. But it's not like that with blogging. It's not like with podcasting. It's very much such an open thing, and it's the more the better, because the more people you have doing it, the different viewpoints you have, and you also increase their reach, because there might be people who listen to Gen Med who've never heard of EMS Garage, but and then it just goes and it goes and goes and goes, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's room for everybody. There really
Yeah.
is.
I'll be honest, I have little time to read. I would love to sit down and read every one of your blogs every day. I don't have time. Where I listen to I listen to books. I listen to podcasts, and that's where I get a lot of my information, simply because that's my lifestyle. So to me, that's why podcasts are a big deal.
Articles and trade journals. Great. Blog posts. Wonderful. Podcasts. You can read. You can listen. Now with Chronicles of EMS, you can watch. There's always been something out there you can look at. But I think we're bringing a level of production that our profession has never seen before. We're branching out. We're not only doing the ride-along series, but that now has spurned this series, The Seat at the Table. Nobody's really listened to us, folks on the ground, and what works. They wouldn't let us have a seat at the table, so we made our own.
And the whole thing of Chronicles of EMS is social media TV, because if everyone followed along when we were filming it, the tweets were going out every day. Ted was putting up videos every day. And when we go to our next place to film, then what you tweet to us and what we tweet back and what we discuss will shape how that episode goes. It's going to be shaped by the calls we go on, but if someone's asking us to ask certain questions, then that's what we do.
Yeah, this is the biggest, newest piece that has so much potential.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we all knew when we came together as a group yesterday that ideas would just start to sprout and oh my God, and just like, you guys and what you created. And I've heard some of those things. And I mean, what is already huge is going to become huger and could spin off into all kinds of other ideas like your podcast. And it's
branches
just
out.
mind-boggling.
Sharing. That's what it comes down to.
Sharing is caring.
I knew somebody was going to say that.
I have a hoodie that
Thanks,
says
Matt.
that. Hey,
Appreciate
that's my
that.
favorite hoodie.
So, any other thoughts on social media in EMS?
I can't let this podcast on social media, especially with public information is going, without mentioning Greg Freese's wonderful educational site for
Yes.
PIO social media training. I believe it's
Yes, I'm hooked up to
PIOSMtraining.com.
that. Yes.
I believe he shared a link in the chat room. We will look for that and try to get it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg's been a real force in EMS podcasting.
I went to EMS Expo this year in Atlanta and I sat in on his lecture on social media. And I was new to social media then. I've only been tweeting and blogging since the end of June this year. And so I sit in, and I was blown away by all these. I'd never heard of like LinkedIn and stuff like that. And Gyms Connect, and that guy knows what he's doing. He has a hand in like every pot, as we say in the South.
Oh, that's what he does.
Well, this community is growing, and there's a lot of opinions out there. We want to hear them. We want to share them. We're trying to not just make social media television, but really just bring everyone together into a whole new community. And like we mentioned earlier with these splintered groups on Facebook, you love this, you hate that, all these different things.
Yeah.
I think everyone can come together and say EMS can be better.
Right.
That's really what our community is based on, both in the US and in the UK.
You want to be a part of that?
And bringing everyone together, and let's get the ideas out there, let's share them, let's see what works, and let's make it happen.
And through this, everybody can be part of it.
Yeah.
And guys,
All of them out there can be
we'll
part
say
of it.
thank you to everyone who's been in the chat rooms. I know CB's just gone off, but he's been there since before we started filming this morning.
Yep.
He's been there the whole time,
You know?
And, this
and
is
they're just as
cutting
important
edge.
as we are sitting here.
Yeah. People are just starting to learn about this, and as more and more people learn about this, our community is going to get really large, but it'll be a good community of really good people, movers and shakers.
Excellent.
That's what we're looking for. Well, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
It was a
Welcome.
wonderful discussion, and look forward to talking with you again, sharing some more ideas, and changing the world. Fair enough?
Changing the world. That's
All right.
good.
I like that.